Hey, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to today's webinar, which is leveraging analytics to power your strategic initiatives. We have a lot to cover in this webinar, and I'm very excited to cover it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Danny Pennell. I'm the Executive Vice President here for SiteStacker, and I have a lot of information that I just want to cover. Some stuff that I've been a little bit nerding out over. And when you nerd out, you just need people to talk with, to share what you're nerding out on. And that's kind of what this is for. So this webinar is more for me than for you. It's an outlet. I joke, but I think there's going to be a lot of value here. And I think that there's going to be a lot of questions, and I think there's probably going to be a lot of follow-up. And so I'm really thrilled to do this. Quick note, at the end of the session, just like always, we're going to have a Wheel of Names raffle, and the winner will receive an Old Florida coffee bag with Old Florida coffee beans and a mug. So don't miss out on that. Coffee is amazing. I can verify. So good. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to just dive right into what we have to share today. So let me share this, and we will get moving. Okay, so we're going to have a little interaction during this session. So if you could pull out your phones, you can scan this QR code, and that will allow you to follow along the session from your phone, or you can enter the code by going to menti.com and entering the code provided there. I'm going to leave about 10-15 seconds for you guys to start scanning this code. There will be other opportunities to scan it through the session, but your interaction, I think, will provide more value, because at the end of the day, what I say is good, but it's good to see what others say as well. Looks like we got 6-7 people who are already joining. Giving 5 more seconds here. 3, 2, 1. Okay. 8, 9. Nice. Last second buzzer beaters there. All right, so let's keep it moving. So today we're talking about implementing strategic initiatives based on what? Based on analytics. And what I want to do is kick it off with a question. How many strategies have you implemented as an organization based on actual analytical assessment? Some of the context here is many times we are developing strategies based on assumption. And I'm very curious how many times you've implemented strategies based purely on analytics, because, and that's good. We got 4 people. We got the majority saying many strategies. That's really good. And we have right in the middle, we've implemented some strategies. So that shows that we have the right people in the room, because at the end of the day, if we're operating strategies and implementing strategies based on assumption, then we're probably more likely to miss. And so this is the lay of the room. We've got someone who said we've implemented no strategy. No strategy is making a comeback. This is what's so fun about this. So as you can see, we're kind of evenly divided. I'm not surprised about that. And I'm hoping today I can give you a push to make sure every strategy you implement on is going to be based on actual analytical assessment. And I actually want to give you insights into what analytics you should be tracking, how you should track them, everything. But before we do that, I want to lay some foundational principles, basically give you a lens for how to view this. It's helped me and my team. This is our lens. I hope you like my little design here. I'm not a designer, but I like organic stuff. So there you go. That's an organic visualization of what I would call the data cycle. And it starts with data collection. It goes to data connection, and then moves on to data visualization. And if you look at this lens, these 3 categories can basically be a lens to view every software initiative you partake in as an organization. If you're implementing a website, you're implementing for the sake of data collection. At the end of the day, you're wanting to collect data, so you need good giving, you need good newsletter sign up, you need good forms. And then if you're wanting to send that data to where you're going to visualize it, you need good data connection. And if you have multiple softwares to manage all that, that means you need a good API, or you need a lot of manual effort and really good processes. And then at the other end of that, in order to actually leverage that data you've collected to continue to grow, you have to provide it in ways that actually provide analytical assessment through data visualization. And so those 3 things are the key, in my opinion, to a cycle of organizational growth. And if you're doing it right, at the end of data visualization, you can send it right back to data collection to continue the growth cycle. And that's why I said if you're doing it right with a winky face. And so winky face is important. All that being said, this is a really important perspective. So let me break this down a little bit deeper. What is data collection? Data collection at the end of the day is giving, it's newsletter sign up, it's form submissions. It's probably more. It's basically any source of entry that someone can have that gives their data to your organization to store in a database. And this is a really important piece of your strategy, right? Data collection, when you do a software implementation that's focused on data collection, your goal is to increase data collection. And that's why from a website perspective, I'm always preaching conversion and conversion, because the purpose of the website is data collection. So increase the conversion rate in order to collect more data. I'm going to keep moving. So this is kind of the foundational principle. Your website and your brand are the greatest impactors of data collection. And what does that mean? It means that you should always be reevaluating your website strategy to make sure you're optimizing your ability to convert, to get people to partner with you, to get people to give, to get people to join as missionaries or join trips or sponsor children. Whatever that source of data collection is, it's very important that we're always reevaluating our strategies in order to make sure we're doing that in an optimal way. I'm a big believer in that. And that's why usually with site stacker projects, that's where we begin on the website. But then you move forward and you move to data connection. And this one I'm pretty passionate about, because at the end of the day, while data collection, the goal is to actually increase the amount of data you're collecting and increase the efficiency of that. Data connection, the goal is to actually decrease the amount of time you have to spend here. At the end of the day, sadly, I think many organizations and just entities in general spend a lot of their time in data connection because they're trying to make sure that the data is clean. They're trying to make sure it goes where it needs to go, that it comes from where it needs to come from. And that effort spent in the data connection piece of this cycle can be used in other areas. For instance, I'd rather take the time spent in data connection and improve data collection, improve our conversion, or I'd rather take the time spent in data connection and improve data visualization, find new ways to see what's going on actually on the ground level as an organization. And so many times data connection, because your website software and your donor management software and whatever other softwares you're using are disconnected third-party softwares, you have to spend a lot of effort either building an API, utilizing an API, and then checking that API, or you have to use manual work. All right. So, sorry, I'm seeing comments come in here. So, by the way, just so everyone knows, question and answers will come at the end of the session. So, prepare your questions. All right. Your software setup and corresponding procedures are the greatest impactors of data connection. Again, what softwares you're using, where they are, and then all the different procedures you implement in order to make them connect. That's going to impact how much time you spend in data connection and how accurate that process is. And so my recommendation, which we'll get to, is to consolidate the amount of effort you need to spend in data connection. Data visualization. So again, if you have collected data and connected it, the last stage is visualization. And that's really where we're going to be spending the majority of this webinar, is showing ways to do this. But I think it was important to show all the things that lead to data visualization, because all that impacts how well you can visualize your data. And data visualization includes business intelligence. It includes dashboards, reports, form submission reviews. For instance, if someone submits a contact form or submits an application form, these are things that you need to be able to visualize, and understanding how to visualize them, but also understanding what to visualize. It actually impacts how you collect data as well. For instance, if you start building business intelligence reports and you realize you'd like to see the historic giving for everybody who's ever given to a child or sponsored a child, then you'll start to realize that you need to be tracking that even historically. And if you don't have that in the data set, then you're limited in your visualization ability. And so part of this is understanding what you need to see, why you need to see it, and how you're going to see it. And if you've solved data collection and data connection to where those things are moving pretty much seamlessly, then you can spend a good amount of time in data visualization. And that's where things start to get really fun. I think data collection's fun. I love websites, but man, as I've been spending time thinking through this, there's so much fun and also impact to be had in this section. And so with all that being said, to summarize this, the connection between your CRM, your business intelligence tool, and your data collection source, your website, your application source, wherever that is the greatest impactor of data visualization. How well are those things connected? The other way of saying that is how you handle data connection is almost the greatest impactor of how you will be able to leverage data visualization. And so, with that in mind, I have a question. Hopefully, I did a good enough job explaining that. I didn't want to spend the whole session going over that. It's a principle that our team's been using, but I want to ask this question for those who are following along on their phones. How many softwares do you currently use for data collection, connection, and visualization? And if you guys, hopefully you'll be able to respond there, 2 to 4, 5 plus. Awesome. I hope that that indicates that we understand what those things mean. So yeah, we can see this is not a surprise. This is what I would consider industry standard. And so what that means is those of you who are in the one category, you're going to have to spend the least amount of time maintaining data connection because it's obviously all connected. Those in the 2 to 4, you're going to spend a more amount of time connecting data, and then 5 plus, I probably am not. And I put sad face and kind of sad face. I'm not trying to discourage you, but I'm saying in terms of the amount of work it takes to connect all of that, I'm probably preaching to the choir here. That's impacting the amount of time you can actually spend in the visualization side. And so again, I'm just going to recommend don't underestimate consolidation. That is a winky face from Andy from The Office. I love that show. But the reason I'm winking is because I truly believe SiteStacker, our software, provides one of the best ways, if not the best way, for a ministry to consolidate data collection, connection, and visualization to one source so that you can start to increase the amount of strategies you're implementing that are founded on real analytics. And so consolidating your data collection, data connection, and data visualization processes into one location is going to allow you to use that time that was formerly dedicated towards just maintaining and dedicated towards visualizing, strategizing, and growing. So that's a very important point, but there's not the only point because you might be on one software and you might still feel like you're not able to utilize your time because you're still just maintaining. And that brings up the second point, which is, are your processes optimized? I've met with a few SiteStacker clients in the past few weeks. It's been a fun few weeks because I've been able to be on site with some clients, and there's been some pain points, to be real with everyone. And I've sat with them trying to understand what are these pain points. And many of the times I realize it's a matter of they're working a process that I would not consider optimized for SiteStacker. And that's the context I have. They're using one software for all of this, but there's still more time being spent in maintaining. And part of that comes in the processes you're working. Are they optimized? Well, one of the ways you can figure that out is by asking us, is this the way we would recommend doing it? But another way is just to constantly reevaluate your processes. Are there better ways to do it? And if you improve your processes, automate more, create more efficient steps, then that allows you to, again, spend more time in visualization focused on growth rather than just maintenance. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm pretty sure most people have more fun focusing on growth and visualization than just constant maintenance. And so let's get on to what we do now with data visualization. So hopefully that made sense as a foundation. Let's get to leveraging analytics. There's kind of two types. There's probably more, but this is where we're going to focus today. Web analytics, database analytics. I don't know which one of you were expecting coming into this session. I've had a lot of requests for Google Analytics assistance. I think that's for a reason, and we'll talk about that. But I've actually had a little bit of a change of how we handle things in the past few months. In terms of gathering analytics, we used to purely do web analytics and look at kind of how the website traffic is handling. And that's really the data collection, like how well are we doing with data collection? But since Google Analytics 4 came and we've seen some limitations, we've realized that we can't use just web analytics. We need to actually leverage database analytics. And I'm going to spend a good portion of our time in database analytics, but I also am going to cover web analytics. And then, of course, if there's things we can talk about afterwards, we can have Q&A. So let's talk about just a general principle. In fact, this is a very important principle when it comes to evaluating any numbers or analytics at all. Content without context is missing its meaning. In fact, this is an important principle in life. So I'm not a life coach, but I do think this is an important principle. And let's apply this to analytics. I can say you have this many donors, and if you don't have the context of, is that average for the type of organization that I am? Is that actually making sense with the amount of work we do in this area? Whatever. The number by itself doesn't actually have the meaning. The number properly placed in the correct context brings all the meaning that you need. And so the reason I bring this up is because I can tell you, hey, go look at all these numbers, go look at all these numbers. But if you don't have the proper lens to understand what those numbers mean, what are the industry averages? What should we be hitting? What are the goals? Those things are what bring the content its meaning. And so you have to start there. And that's something I want to help you with. And we'll talk about how our organization, our company is planning on helping all of you with understanding the context of these numbers. So firstly, let's focus in on web analytics. So how many of you have used Google Analytics 4? And for those of you who have used it, can you let me know your thoughts? I didn't really add a lot of nuance here. It's amazing. It's sad face and haven't used it. And I expect haven't used it to be the most. I'm still waiting for the it's amazing. I wanted to see if it would make an appearance. Okay, cool. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to talk about Google Analytics 4. I would rather have you guys talk about it. But I will say my experience has been more in this area. And that's coming from someone who's done 40 plus web analytics reviews for missions organizations and child sponsorship organizations. We used Google Analytics before. They've updated. They're built more for apps now. And that's limiting our ability to track things we used to be able to track. And so because of that, our web analytics recommendations are probably more limited than ever before. And that's not because we want less analytics. That's because the ability to generate some of these analytics just isn't there. And so for those of you who haven't used it, I'm sure there's some people who just aren't interested in using it. There's probably some other people who've taken one look at Google Analytics 4 and said, I'm good, because it's pretty excessive. However, I am going to show you some of the things we're using Google Analytics for now. And all of these things are very simple to track. And this is not necessarily a training on how to do it, but I will say that we'll send a little bit of a screenshot resource post this webinar to show you how we set this up in Google Analytics 4. It won't be a training. It'll just be a visual. It's very easy to track though. Here's what we're tracking that really indicates to me the health of a website. Checkout conversion. Obviously, I put 82% in bold there. That's SiteStacker's average. You can track checkout conversion by basically, if you're on SiteStacker, going to the checkout page and then creating a funnel that tracks the amount of checkouts that go to thank you. Sadly, this has been harder than ever to do because Google limits the amount of data you can track for those funnels. However, you can also look at the engagement rate on your checkout page, and that's usually with about a 7%, 7 to 8% margin for error, a good indicator of your checkout conversion. So if your checkout page has like 90% engagement, you're probably hanging out around 85, 82%. All right. Engagement rate. This is your engagement rate for the whole website. This is showing the percentage of people who actually stay engaged when they visit your website. And you can narrow this down to per page analytics. So you can see what's your engagement rate on the home page, what's your engagement rate on the give page, what's your engagement rate on the mobilization page. These are really helpful insights to show us whether the content we're putting out on our website is being effective. Mobile versus desktop. It's very important to make sure that our websites perform equally on mobile as they do on desktop. So we track engagement rate. We track the percentage of users who are joining our website from those sources. Top 7 to 10 pages with the corresponding engagement rate. I think this is actually, I mean, maybe I'm a simple guy. This is probably my favorite analytic to track in our web analytic reviews because this shows where the users are actually going. And if your top 7 to 10 pages are pages that don't represent things that you actually want to happen on the website, then it's a good indicator that your website is not performing optimally. But if your top 7 to 10 pages are go, give, missionaries, child sponsorship, checkout, then you're looking really, really good. And I will say most of the time when I do reviews on SiteStacker, clients, you are probably going to be looking like checkout, giving, all those primary outcomes are probably going to be in your top 7 to 10 pages based on what I've seen. And then top 5 traffic sources, where are they coming from? Direct, typing in the website URL, searching on Google, from social media, etc. And then lastly, primary navigation funnels, which is a little more nuanced, but this is one that has been difficult to track in Google Analytics for. So I haven't been doing it as much, but if you can figure it out, let me know. Basically, I like to track the amount of people who are going to the homepage that then continue to the give page, that then continue to a completed checkout, trying to see which navigation funnels are seeing the most success. That's a very helpful thing to track. There are certain reports on Google that might be able to help you do that. However, I haven't really been able to find a way to replicate the way we used to do it before. But these are the foundational web analytic metrics that I would encourage you as an organization to stay on top of, to track. Again, you can do that through Google Analytics 4. I've verified you can do pretty much all of these pretty simply, and it's a really good way to just track how things are going. So yeah, and then again, your website's performance is the foundation of that cycle that we mentioned. It's the foundation of data collection. Without a good website performance, you're going to be missing out on a lot of other potential opportunities. And so I'd say it's a no-brainer. If you feel like your website needs a renovation, if you feel like you need to reevaluate the strategy, please reach. I mean, you could reach out directly to me. I love websites. I love being able to optimize websites, tell the story of your organization better. So much of how a website performs is how accurate and genuine is it in terms of how it reflects your missions, your organization's mission. And so always be reevaluating your website so that you can make sure you're capitalizing on the opportunities here. So let's continue and let's talk business intelligence. I'm very excited to do this. This has been a good chunk of my time in the past couple months is thinking through this, trying to leverage this. And not just my time. We've had team members on the SiteStacker team that have spent a good amount of time here. And there's a lot to talk about. So let me just kind of preface it by saying the proper business intelligence analytics will help formulate and even affirm organizational strategies. I've seen this. We've spent quite a bit of time in the past couple months developing what are the actual insights we want people to see, we want to be able to see on organizations in order to basically dictate new strategies, to affirm whether or not strategies that we've already implemented are working. And what are those? How do we want to see them? And so we spend a lot of time thinking through that. And in doing that, we found I've presented it to multiple organizations at this point. And it's been really interesting to see some organizations were like, we were already thinking that way. And these analytics have helped affirm the direction we should go. Some organizations were like, I didn't even think of that. And so either way, by kind of putting these analytical formulas and reports and business intelligence views together, it's going to help either affirm or formulate new strategies. And that's where visualization really starts to have an impact. So I would like to know first, which category is your organization in? I've really simplified this. Missionary sending. Are you part of a missionary sending organization, or are you part of a child sponsorship organization, or are you part of an organization that would not categorize by either? Missionary sending. Pretty good balance. It looks like the missionary sending bar is green, blending in with the background, so that's fun. Um, and then we have one other. So, okay, great. Yeah, so we have a pretty good balance. That's kind of what I expected. As you guys know, that's our world. That's where we live. And that also, I did that to show you who's in the room watching this, because they're probably very similar to you. And that's because we serve in a very unique space where we work mostly with child sponsorships and missionary sending organizations and other Christian nonprofits, which I'm sure is where the others are falling there. And so with that in mind, there's a couple things that occurred to me in these past couple months. Two opportunities. One, Google Analytics. Because Google Analytics has some limitations and we're not able to generate all the web analytics, it made me think, how can we use SiteStacker's business intelligence tool to make up for the lack of analytics that's in Google Analytics new reports? How can we leverage this really powerful business intelligence tool that SiteStacker offers to actually provide insights to organizations and how they are doing, how are their strategies working, and also where are some things they should change or make pivots for in the future. And that's really important. And that's led to what I'm about to show you now. But then the second opportunity is a big one. Remember that context is more important than content point I was making? Well, this is where SiteStacker actually comes into play. And this is why our mission has had a pretty solid impact on what we're able to do, because using SiteStacker's expansive access to missionary sending and child sponsorship data, we can understand market trends and determine health scores for those types of organizations. It's a really unique place. So if you're a child sponsorship, if you're a missionary sending, and even if you're just a Christian nonprofit, we have extraordinary amount of data at SiteStacker that we are able to generate averages from to actually understand what are the market trends. Are we seeing missionary giving go up? Are we seeing missionary giving go down? Are we seeing child sponsorship giving go up or down? Are we seeing more missionaries join the field, etc.? There's so many things we can start to analyze to actually help you as an organization understand what the market trends are, and then also whether you're performing optimally, above average, or below average in certain areas. And I say this, I put this stat, this was actually from another presentation we did. But I don't know how many of you know this, but we actually, 63% of missionary sending agencies use SiteStacker. And that's again based on revenue. But that's an extraordinary amount of data that actually can serve as a proper health check score and market trend. And so that's where the context comes, is we want, as we do these assessments for organizations, to understand what are the averages, what are the things that you should shoot for. And that's really hopefully going to provide a lot of value. But then the next thing is, where are we? So in developing what I would consider a health check report, that's kind of what we're looking at here, is what are the things that I think can provide a lot of value and also serve as a bedrock for new strategies and existing ones. And this is where we are going to look at specific reports that I would recommend each and every one of you start to look at. And let's start with the first one: recurring trends. This is all screenshotted here is business intelligence report views that we have built on the SiteStacker system. We spend a lot of time. A lot of these reports are extremely complex and have a lot going on, but the end result is really cool. So for instance, how about a business intelligence view that gives you a quick visual of the ongoing health of your recurring donation engagement? And as you can see, that purple is the total recurring gifts. The green line there is the trend. So are you seeing more new recurring schedules or less new recurring schedules per year? And then that red line is canceled recurring schedules. So are you seeing canceled recurring schedules go up or down? And that quick visual over a few different years can give you everything you need to know about the performance of your recurring giving programs. But let's take it a step further. Why don't we take it a step further and understand the recurring trends per category of giving? Like, for instance, here you have within that a recurring trend that shows a project recurring trend over the past 3 years. And what you can see is that project new recurring green line, that represents the amount of new recurring schedules. That shows us that project recurring is going up over the past 3 years at a higher rate than normal recurring. If I go back here, that's insights that I can assume or I can run the numbers on. But if I can just visually see this, this gives me a visual for where the trends are. And then it makes you ask the question. For instance, you can ask, did we do something in the past 2 years that is leading to this increase? Or did we do nothing? Is this purely a market trend? People are more willing to give to projects. And based on those answers, you can develop strategies to capitalize on that. And you can narrow down using SiteStacker basically recurring trends to every single category of giving you present: child sponsorship, projects, missionaries. In fact, you could create sub-project categories and track how those things are doing versus others. There's so much potential to how you can track this using this business intelligence tool, and that's kind of why we built this specific report. So let's keep going. This is another one. Maybe you have thought about this, maybe you haven't. Entry points. A business intelligence view that gives you detailed insights into how each record in your database entered into your database. The potential takeaways that can be gathered from this are game changing. So for instance, you have this database of records in your SiteStacker platform or in your current database, whatever that is. And if you could just track how are they getting in there, then it would give you a whole new ballgame as to where your people are coming from. So you can see in this pie chart that donor entry point is colored green. That's 50% of the database. Added in CRM is 7%. That means someone manually added that person to the CRM. And then you could keep going down the line. Newsletter signups, that's 13%. So 13% of your people in your database came in by signing up for a newsletter. Well, what does that give me? Well, if you take it a step further and build further into that business intelligence view, you can see what I think is highly valuable, the percentage of people who actually became donors from each entry point. And so you can go at a granular level and you can say, out of the 13% of people in our database who came in signing up for a newsletter, how many of those ended up becoming donors? And based on those percentages, you can determine whether you're doing well or whether you're not, whether you need to increase your marketing efforts to those who are signing up for newsletters, or whether you need to just maintain what you're doing because you're performing effectively. And the newsletter is just an example. We track every single entry point in SiteStacker. And so we're able to get granular data as to how people are coming into contact with your organization. And that really, really helps you understand where the opportunities are. So let's keep moving. Online versus offline. A business intelligence view that gives you a quick visual of the percentage of your giving that comes online versus offline. A no-brainer, right? But part of this is what makes that an actual number that is meaningful. Well, it's what you should be shooting for. And so, like, if you are 50% online and 50% offline, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, the context depends on what is your organizational strategy, what is the market trend, what is the average in the software you're using in SiteStacker. I can tell you that in SiteStacker, the trend is always every year should be more and more of your gifts are going to be online gifts. So if you've been with us for 4 or 5 years, you should see a trend that online gifts are increasing, not decreasing. That's the typical standard. And so, like, you could see in this case, 92% of your gifts are online, 8% are offline. So then you take that a step further. As you can see, it's a kind of simple view, and then taking it a step further to gather more insights. Take it a step further to actually gain insights into the trend of online versus offline gifts. Is online giving a growing portion of your database or shrinking portion? So if this year it's 92%, what was it next year? And if it was 90%, then you have a good trend. If it was 94%, then you might not have a good trend. And again, that depends on your organizational strategies. Maybe you want more on offline giving. I wouldn't recommend it because it actually costs a little bit more. However, you can see this is just a quick visual chart that shows from 2021 to 2022, we saw a 4% increase in online giving recurrings. And again, this is all sample data, but we saw a 4% increase in that. And then and from 2022 to 2023, we saw an additional basically 1.7% increase. So you can see the trend is headed in a good direction, but you had a good boost in 2022. What did you do that year? And that helps you kind of take a moment to look as an organization, understand what did we do to effectively generate more online giving that year. These are things that can help give you these insights. One time versus recurring. And I know I'm going kind of fast, but I want to make sure I get through. There's a lot of analytics to look at here. One time versus recurring. A business intelligence view that gives you a quick visual of the percentage of your giving that comes one time versus recurring. Very simple. Very similar to online versus offline. And then you take it a step further. What are the trends in 2021? 91%, 2022, 92%, next year 92%, this year we're on track for 95%. This gives us good insights to whether we are hitting our goals. And again, very much of this, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, depends on your organizational goals, but your organizational goals also depend on some of these analytics. And so it's kind of a repeating cycle. And so, however, this is insights that I would recommend every organization take advantage of, because you're going to be able to see things that are going to inform your strategies. Donor category. This is a business intelligence view that gives you a quick visual of the category of your donors: small donor, mid-level donor, large donor, and high-level donor. And this, again, in a very, very quick way, can show you what the percentage of your database looks like. So for instance, in this example, this is a 50% of your donors are high-level donors. And again, what that makes up can be up to you. But in this case, let's say that's 10,000 plus donors, donors who give $10,000 or more in 1 year. That's 50% of your database. Well, then what does that give you an insight on? We need to reshape this pie. That mid-level donor, that purple category there, which is over here, is only at 8%. And if that's $1,000 to $10,000 a year donors, then you can see there's an obvious opportunity. We need to increase the $1,000 to $10,000 a year donors to try to reshape this pie so that if one of our high-level donors leaves, we're not in a bad place. Again, I'm spitballing here because what you leave with is based on the analytics you would see when you do this and what your goals are. But this gives you quick access to see how you're doing and where you should be going as an organization. And then you take it a step further. What do the trends say? Again, are the trends headed in the direction you want them to head? And then what do you do about that? Okay, next. This is probably my favorite view, and this is something that I think is going to be really important going forward. But this is donor lifetime analysis. This is something we've developed recently that I would recommend everyone do, and we're going to help you kind of do that in the future. And I'll show you how at the end of this webinar. But this is a business intelligence view that gives you a quick visual of the category of your donors, and basically the lifetime value. And so you can see segmented into different 25% quartiles, all of your donors, what their average gift size is, what their value to you as an organization is, and when they drop off. So, for instance, if donors who stop giving within 1 year, or donors stop giving, what year? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Sometimes all these numbers, if you have donors who have become inactive, that's what we'll say. And out of those donors who are inactive, you can see now which year they stop giving in. So for instance, out of all your inactive donors, you can see that inactive donors on average stop giving in year 2. That's extremely valuable insight, because you can say that means we need to make sure that our first year giving response program, whether it's marketing newsletter, whether it's we're calling you, whatever that is, that's got to be really good. And if we can make that really good and get a first year donor into that second year, the value potential increases significantly, because active donors provide more value on average than inactive donors. And what you're seeing, there's a bunch of sample data that probably is overwhelming. But the point here is, as you get into this data, you can start to see, for instance, if you zoom in, or I can't zoom in there, but on the leftmost column, average value. That's the average value of each of your donors based on where they came from and based on what quartile they're in terms of their total value of your organization. You can see basically that inactive donors are going to be a little bit less valuable than active donors, actually quite a bit less valuable. These are things that I would encourage you to see. Now, again, I don't have necessarily all the time in the webinar to go through a real life example of this. I'm trying to hopefully get the bells turning, or the wheels turning, so that you guys can start thinking through how you could apply this to your organization. But this is really valuable. Let's take it a step further. So then if you could look at lifetime value of your donors, inactive, active, but then you could segment that lifetime analysis of your donors by the category that they gave to with their first gift. Do donors bring more value when they start as a project donor, child sponsorship, or missionary donor? These insights really can change your fundraising strategies. So for instance, right here you see entry point 1, missionary, and then that's quartiled into 4 different divisions of your donor base. And you can see that basically a missionary donor a donor who started as a missionary donor has an average gift size of $345, and then has an average value of $20,150. But then if we go down, you can see that someone who entered as a child sponsor, has an average gift size of $866, and then an average value of $5,021. So again, this is all sample data. This data is test data that we did. But the point is if you were able to do this and apply it to your database, you could get really quick insights in which donors bring the most long-time value. And again, what you do with that takes a lot of strategy. But in my opinion, if, for instance, project giving, if someone comes in as a project donor and provides way more value over the course of their lifetime on average than someone who comes in as a child sponsor, that makes you really think, should we be promoting project giving more than child sponsorship? Again, that's a pretty radical idea. I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm saying radical ideas aren't so radical when they're fueled by analytics that make sense. And so the point is uncover this for your organization so that you can actually start to see, where should we be going for fundraising strategies? Because we're not looking at what do we want next year. We're looking at what do we want for a lifetime of our organization. The other thing you can see with this report is the actual average lifespan per category. So missionary donors, how long on average do they last? Project donors, how long on average do they last? Etc. That's really, really good stuff. And the other thing to keep in mind is this, along with all other reports that I've looked at today, are going to be limited by your historic data set. And if you haven't figured that out, now there you go. you have to make sure that you have good historic data in order to generate reports like this, lifespan reports. But that's something that you might not have thought to have really detailed, granular historic data before until you have reports like this where you have a reason to have that. You want to see lifetime from the past 30 years. That's stuff that I would encourage you to start thinking about. And that shows you how analytics can have more of an impact than just what are we doing. It actually can impact how do we gather information? What do we do about historic data? What do we do about gathering information in the future? How do we make sure we have data that actually allows us to build reports like this? These are important questions to answer organizationally from a high level. Okay, so then a little bit of a quick fire, just other helpful insights that we've developed and I've been using in these analytics reviews that I think have brought a lot of value. Average gift size, one time and recurring. What you'll notice is SiteStacker is a really high average one-time gift size, especially online, specifically online. And that's something that I would encourage you to track. And then what you can do with that is figure out whether or not you are on par, below average, or above average. And the average one-time gift size, by the way, for SiteStacker is around $350. And so right there, me giving you that information makes that more valuable. Because if you had said our average one-time gift size $200, is that good or bad? I don't know. Well, if I told you that the average one-time gift size of SiteStacker is $350 and the average one-time gift size of the nonprofit industry is $121, that gives you a better analysis into as to which to handle that stat. And so that's something that I want to provide, and we'll talk about that. But that just gives you that context over content. The other thing is total revenue by category. Where are we getting the most of our revenue by category of giving? Is it child sponsorship? Is it project giving, missionary giving? If you're a child sponsorship with multiple programs, are you getting more revenue from this program or this program? That's something I would definitely recommend tracking. Yearly revenue trends. That's very simple. I probably am not. And in fact, you might be like, come on, I didn't come here for that. But it is an important one to know. How is your organizational yearly revenue trends? And then segment that by category. How is your yearly revenue trend for child sponsorship? For the past 5 years, are we seeing that go up, go down? Missionary revenue trends? And hopefully what you've gathered here, and it's what really is on my mind as I look through this, is when we start to uncover these analytics, it really makes us think, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And then it almost lets it be fair game for all of our strategies. Like, for instance, that radical strategy I was talking about. Wait, before we get there, that radical strategy I was talking about earlier of like, let's replace more child sponsorships with project giving. That sounds crazy, but then when you start to think about it, child sponsorship is expensive to manage. Project giving is less expensive to manage. If you had people convert at the same recurring gift amount to general giving as they do to child sponsorship, that's more impact per dollar. And if the trend shows you that people are more willing to give to projects and the recurring project trend is going up, that gives you a really good foundation to make that radical decision. Those decisions can't be made or even thought of until you start looking at analytics like that, in my opinion. And that's why I really think these are important reports and visualizations to look at. So, however, this is not comprehensive. This is the past couple of months putting a lot of thought and effort towards this as our team has been doing what we've come up with. And it's probably going to grow over time. We're going to find new insights. But what I'd love to hear is, what are some reports that your team is building or using to help fuel your organizational strategies? What are some of the insights that you are looking at as an organization that impacts your strategies? As we asked earlier, that there was, well, I think the first question I asked was, how many of you have built strategies based on analytics? And a lot of you said yes. What are some of those analytics you guys are doing? And I'm doing this so that the others in the room can see what you're using. And if it's nothing, it's nothing. That's why we're here. But I was curious who would have a response here. So I'll give it a couple minutes because I know it's a type response. And if you, after a few seconds, oh, we got one response. Credit card versus EFT versus checks and the cost of each. That's fantastic. So credit card versus EFT versus checks and the cost of each. That's a report that I wouldn't only say is good administratively. That gives you good data to actually share, not everything, but the information with your donors. So for instance, I've worked with a lot of ministries that have had initiative internally. We want more online giving, but our donors love offline giving. Well, if your donors knew the cost on average of their check versus a credit card or EFT gift, would they be more willing to convert to online so that their dollars have more impact? I would say yes. Knowing the donor bases we serve with, that's most likely something that they would do. So these are ways that not only can these be good administratively, but that's a great report to even start to share with your donors. Fully funded versus not fully funded missionaries. Fantastic. That gives you quick insights into where the needs are. I have some others that actually added it into the comments, so I'll read that. Predictive revenue for missionaries. I would love to see that. That's really exciting. We are building a predictive revenue report that helps track missionary support levels using recurring and one-time gift averages per year. That's fantastic. And for the missionary sending organizations in the room, being able to predict things like that, like revenue for missionaries, is going to really provide your missionaries with helpful insights that help them feel cared for. Mobilization dashboard. I'm assuming that's reports that track how well your mobilization strategies are going. So this is great. I'm going to share this with in a recap, and you'll have access to these. Thank you guys for sharing the different reports you're using. This is helpful, and I think it helps again promote brainstorming with all of us as to what we can be doing. All right, let's continue. I'm going to summarize some things, and then we're going to open up questions and answers and also just feedback. So one summary: consolidate your sources of data collection, connection, and visualization. That's pretty straightforward. I would say on the initial level, if you can consolidate those things, you can focus on things like predictive revenue for missionaries, which I know the guy who just submitted that comment, and I know that they've consolidated. And so that I already think of, man, they had the time to be able to think of building a predictive revenue for missionaries report because they've consolidated their software, and that's really exciting. Let's keep going. Use analytics to build intelligent strategies based on real data rather than assumption. Strategies will always be more effective and foolproof if they're based on real analytics with real context rather than assumption. Clean data is the key to more insightful reporting. Be thinking how to keep your databases clean. That data that came in 5 years ago is not important until you're using a report that makes it important. So be thinking, how can we make sure that our data is clean? Your website conversion is the kickoff to a healthy data cycle. Don't forget that. That's highly important, as sometimes we focus on the back end when it comes to data. But when it comes to data, the front end conversion and how well that's doing is highly important to Okay, now it's probably not as clear, but you should be able to hear me. All right. We're not using the fancy mic that always breaks. We're using my MacBook now. So thanks, Apple. All right. And then lastly, this is really important summary. Never stop improving your processes. There's no resting point. I know that sounds tiring, but there really isn't. And if you could spend more time maintaining processes rather than maintaining the actual process, that didn't make sense. If you could spend more time iterating and improving processes rather than just working them, that's better. Then you're going to see better results for your efforts, and that's very important. So, and lastly, again, I will never forget, context is more important than content. So numbers are good, but the context in which they reside is better. There's more to get to here, guys. This is kind of the big thing that I wanted to share. Health check dashboard is coming soon. So all of these reports that I talked about, like the lifetime value, that's an extremely complex report. We've done multiple iterations at this point trying to build that. And I think it's highly valuable. And my thought is, how do we make sure that all clients have access to this? How can we make sure that health check is a regular routine for you where you don't have to go and build the report every time? It's a page that you load. And we're working on that right now. So the ultimate goal here is to provide clients with a health check dashboard that will actually show you all of this data in one clean view so that you can see everything you need to see very quickly. But also, it's going to provide you with averages to correspond to that so that you have the context as well. So that's what our team is going to be working on in the next few months here. And the goal is to be able to provide not just the reports, but the context of what those reports should be showing, how to interpret those reports. Are you on track? Are you running behind? Are you ahead of the game? What strategy should you implement? This is, I mean, in my mind, it's so cool to be able to take all the missional organizations that are working with SiteStacker now, and you know us, hopefully at this point, we are missional. That's why we're doing it. And start to understand as a missions market, not just as a missions organization, but as a missions market, how do we continue to grow? Where are the trends? How do we stay ahead rather than getting behind? And at least for our part, we want to provide that information as much as possible so that you guys can make educated decisions and continue to proceed into the future where missions is needed more than ever. Your mission is needed more than ever. So how do we make sure we're doing that well? And that's where we want to come into play. So that's coming. There'll be more information. I don't have a ton right now. It's very preliminary right now. But it will be coming, and all the details as to how that will happen will come soon. Hopefully you're excited, and all those reports that I looked at will be involved. There'll probably be even some more. So final recommendations, and then we'll get to question and answer. Expand your usage of SiteStacker. This is again, that consolidation effort. If you're on SiteStacker, think of ways to expand your usage of it. I'm not saying that just because I work for SiteStacker. I know I'm a little biased, but as I've really worked in these analytics in the past couple months, I'm realizing how helpful it is to have SiteStacker as unanimous source for data collection, connection, and visualization. We can do things that we probably couldn't have thought of doing before. But if you're not using SiteStacker for all those things, I would just recommend think of how you might be able to do that. What's limiting you from achieving that status? And if you are using SiteStacker for a lot of things, then expand how you work your processes. Keep reevaluating that. Get access to our business intelligence tool. If you don't have access to our business intelligence tool and you're on SiteStacker, you can have access as soon as you ask for it. Basically, we're opening up access to it. It's a great tool. All the reports I went over today were built in that tool. And I would love to see more and more organizations like what I asked earlier, and just hearing all the reports that these organizations are building. They're building it using our business intelligence tool. And I would love to see more and more organizations do that so that we can, again, reap the benefit of creative strategy, not just from us, but from all these amazing organizations that are working in the tool. So become one of those. We'll have follow-up email to show you how to do that. Get a website evaluation from our team. I really recommend that. I would love to just look into what your website's doing, how it's organized, your sitemap, your funnels. We've learned so much in website analytics over the past 6 years that even if you launched the website with us 3 years or more ago, or even as soon as 3 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, there's things we've learned since then that could even improve what you do. And I'm not saying it would even end in a project with us. I would love to just give you recommendations right just in a phone call. And you can implement it using the SiteStacker tool. So I definitely recommend that. Configure with data visualization in mind. So again, when you're configuring forms, contact forms, mobilization forms, even checkouts, and the way you organize your projects or campaigns, configure with the visualization in mind. So don't just build a project to have a project. Build it in order to visualize who gives to that project on the other side when we have these reports built. That's going to help you create a really solid ecosystem where everything is really connected. And then lastly, ask me some questions. So this is the time to ask questions, and I will make sure to get to them because I think, where are we at? Yeah, we're 6 minutes out. I never know where I'm going to land, but it always lands right about here. So it's kind of, that's God, not me, for sure. So ask me some questions. Let's go ahead and get to questions, and then we'll get to a raffle. So does the business intelligence tool cost extra? No, it doesn't, Didi. It actually doesn't. So there is an admin agreement that you will need to sign if you're not already using it. That basically just clarifies that as you're building these reports, our support of your custom reports is going to have a limitation. And so it is a billable support of, like, all of our support of your business intelligence is billable, just because there's no way for us to control what you're building, which is kind of the cool thing, but also some of the trade-off there when it comes to support. Cost of a website evaluation. $0. For those of you who want a website evaluation, it won't cost a dime. We would love to schedule that. Just reach out to our support team if you want to schedule that. And it will either be me or it will be one of our creative ops team members that can help just visualize and go over your website and articulate to you the opportunities that exist. So yeah, get on that as soon as possible. It's free. It's free, guys. It's free. All right. What else do we have? Anyone else have any questions? We have a lot of comments, but let me go back here to make sure I didn't miss. There was a question earlier that Paul asked, is the donor lifetime analysis report available to us? Hopefully that was answered. It is something that we want to make available in the context of a health check dashboard, but it's something that is going to take some time to plan out because it's pretty complex. So, okay. If there's no other questions, the only other thing I would say is if you are in our business intelligence tool and you'd like to know kind of some of the ways we've built some of these reports, you feel free to schedule a training. We'd love to give insights into how we've done that. But if not, I hope you have great success building reports and tracking analytics. I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quick so that I can get the raffle pulled up. 1 second. I got another question. Can you explain data visualization in a different way? Data visualization is basically when you've collected data and connected it, and now what do you do with it? So for instance, if you do website really well and you get a lot of giving, that's great. But if you don't know how to track that giving to formulate valuable insights, then you're not doing much with the data you have. So data visualization is all about leveraging the data you have and getting deeper level of insights that help you formulate smart strategies to increase growth over the next few years. And so really how you visualize the data is ultra important. And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we just like, let's generate giving and then let's connect it and focus all our efforts on connecting it. But then we don't really spend enough time focusing on how can we visualize this in better ways. So hopefully that's a good explanation of that. And yeah, let's get to the raffle. So I'm sure many of you are wanting some Old Florida coffee, hopefully. So I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, sorry. There's another question. I'm going to get to it because we have a couple minutes. Sorry to keep tempting you guys with the raffle. Can you explain the difference between business intelligence and the health check dashboard a little more? So business intelligence is the tool that we use in SiteStacker to generate and build custom reports that reference and basically create what we call SQL queries of the database. So if you have a database that has data on SiteStacker, you can use the business intelligence tool, or we can, to generate custom reports that you can then leverage. The health check dashboard would be an actual page where we could publish some of those reports. So you have easy access to revisualize all the data whenever you want. So you don't have to kind of, like, the old way of doing that is you have to have a very knowledgeable technical person create custom SQL queries on command. If you are able to publish reports from the business intelligence tool on the health check dashboard, you'll never have to do that again. To access the business intelligence tool, again, man, we got the questions coming in late. To access the business intelligence tool, reach out to our support team and just let them know at our SiteStacker training site through the chat that you'd like access to the business intelligence tool. They'll walk you through the steps. It's pretty simple, and we'll make sure to get you into that tool. So, all right, I think I am about at time, so let's get to the raffle. Thanks for the questions, guys. I'm going to pull this up. We have this beautiful raffle. Here's everyone that's on the call, and I think I'm going to click to spend. That's right. Click spend. That's a very fast spend. And the winner is Jordan Zerker. Zerker. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced it, but you probably know who you are. And you have won the Old Florida raffle. So sorry to everyone else who was waiting just to try to win. But you should have been here for the content. Just kidding. But thank you, everybody. Jordan will be in touch, and we will have a follow-up email with some of the information we talked about. Appreciate all you guys, and hope you have a great rest of your week. Talk soon.